were in a different location, let's say more of a neighborhood, a bit more of a residential area, of course the concern would then be a possible foot bail or anything like that running away. It's just right now you're sort of biding time and waiting until perhaps that car gives out. It doesn't look, as Leslie, you mentioned, that there's any sort of attempt to pin the vehicle in, but you wonder if that might change whether or not we get closer to the 405 there.
Yeah, and you can see that CHP really trying to get behind this driver here, hoping, I'm sure, that they'll be giving up sometime soon because this is going very slow at this hour. I can't make it out there, but it looks like maybe that isn't a license plate. I could be wrong here, but it's not giving. Take a look. Okay, it looks like maybe it's. You can't make it out. It's hard to tell. Maybe it's one of those specialized license plates that you can't really make out right away there. But yeah, this car, Gio, going so incredibly slow. It looks like it's a convertible there. Am I right on that?
Yes, it does look like a convertible. And just within the frame of your screen, you'll notice the amount of CHP vehicles in pursuit, and then sort of that back end forming a line, essentially, and leading back even more so to then another barrier holding back traffic. So you see that it's, despite that it's just one very slow, seemingly easy and simple pursuit, it is affecting on a multitude of levels a lot of different people, particularly those who are trying to get somewhere. And right there, you see the exit. It looks like you're well on your way to getting to the 405 southbound.
Yeah, that's where this is now going to lead here. But yeah, it's interesting to see just how many CHP patrol cars there are. They have completely blocked off the southbound lanes of the 405. It looks like at this point, some of those CHP cars, take a look to the left, riding right next to, oh, no, now we're to the actual vehicle there. It's hard to see here because there's so many different formations of CHP patrol cars, but it looks like these cars here are leading, and they're just on the tail as that car continues to move with a possible kidnapping suspect inside.
And perhaps that is one of the many reasons why you wouldn't see perhaps another spike strip or maybe a pit maneuver, maybe just waiting it out to see for that car to sort of give out in order to give this pursuit an end. But right now, that all we can do is wait, given the fact that that car, and you obviously want to play it safe if if there is a kidnapping in progress right now, you have to take into account somebody else involved in this as well. But at the moment,
simply don't know those details right now. We don't know who is inside that vehicle, if someone may be in danger. But you can see that CHP is being aggressive in trying to get this pursuit to come to a stop, to get that suspect out. This is definitely not something that they would give up on, especially given that we know spike strips were already deployed. The vehicle is continuing to drive without at least what we believe is that front driver's side tire. It looks like that is completely gone at this point. But it's always so just mind-blowing that these vehicles can continue to move with one less tire.
And honestly, there's no other thought in terms of what more can be done at the moment, and especially considering there's that second line right there of CHP vehicles right there. You count 5 on your screen, and then you know there's those in front, and then even more so behind on top of it. Just dealing with traffic on a Saturday night, and then you're wondering what the next step is going to be as this car, anytime it makes a movement, you wonder if it's finally going to pull off to the side, or if it's going to take an exit, or if it's or if the driver's finally going to realize that there's really not much else that he or she can do in this situation, given the fact that they are, for lack of a better word, cornered. There is no other direction really to go. There's no escaping this scenario. We've often caught ourselves in multiple pursuits where
looks like it's speeding up a little bit.
Yeah, just a tad, and where you see vehicles try and maneuver endlessly 25 to 40 miles per hour through a particular neighborhood that the person is familiar with.
Take a look. But it looks like, am I correct to say no? It looked like that driver's side door opened, but I think we're we're just noticing it as it turned, maybe the vehicle. But you could see how wobbly it is, right? Yeah. It's maneuvering right now, especially towards the front.
And outside of any other, it doesn't look, at least from our perspective, and granted it is dark, so it's hard to see. Yeah, it does again look like it's just that front left tire, no other damage that you can quite make out, but just the way as it looks like we're coming underneath an overpass here briefly, so we'll wait for the vehicle to come out the other end. But to wrap up the earlier point is that in other cases you see, especially when we have pursuits on the freeway where you're going at exceedingly high speeds, and the concern there is ramming into somebody else or crashing, it just causing a mess of a scene and a danger to so many other people. Whereas in this particular case, the dynamics have changed to the point where here, this is the wide scope of it all. And
CHP has completely shut down what looks to be a good portion of that 605 South, 405 South interchange there. It looks like they pushed traffic back quite a bit now as the vehicle continues to chug along here. But the good thing here, Gio, is that this is happening on our freeways, which means it's all CHP jurisdiction, which means that sergeant that's leading this pursuit is able to talk to, you know, the sergeant that may be manning the 405 and let them know, hey, that's where we're headed. Start to clear the roadways for us.
And that becomes a lot easier when you're going at this speed, which is obviously incredibly slow. It actually makes tactical maneuvering and management a lot easier, considering that you're not dealing with someone who is going 50, 60, 70 plus miles per hour. You even see some of those CHP cars rolling off there on an exit, perhaps maybe coming out the other side. But we'll see, obviously, right now, because we kind of lost track of the vehicle going under those overpasses just visually, but we know they're in that area right now, and that CHP essentially has a handle on this. They know exactly where the vehicle is. Again, this is a pursuit, if you're just joining us, that started on the 5605 interchange going south on the 605, and right now it looks like we're going toward the 405 exit. And the vehicle that you were looking at going maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 miles per hour, incredibly slowly, was spike stripped at some point, losing perhaps that front left tire that we were pointing out, and that the suspect is wanted for possible kidnapping. Again, don't know if that person has a weapon or not, so these are fluid details, a fluid situation that we are trying to figure out for you right now.
That is moving rather slowly, but we're going to try to maneuver our helicopter here. Just a word to our viewers, it is cloudy out there. There are some low clouds, so we're told that our chopper, SkyCal, has to hang back just a bit for obviously our crew's safety. But as we tried to get past this overpass there, we're waiting to see if we can see that vehicle that police CHP is pursuing right now. It looks to be like a white convertible, and can't make it out just yet there, Gio.
No, it looks like, right now it's just those CHP vehicles, and it's right there.
It's right there. We're going to go through this tunnel here, so it's going to be maybe quite a moment before we're able to see it come out the other end, because this thing is moving 5 miles per hour at this point.
And one of the other questions here, if this is where that vehicle is about to come out of too, we pointed out so far in the last 15 minutes how much traffic has been affected. That's been behind on the 605 right now. And as we transition here to the 405, and you were just noticing on the left side of your screen as the vehicle pops up right there in the center of your screen, there's even more traffic to consider. And of course, traffic is always top of our minds here in Southern California on any day of the week, particularly on a weekend night if you're trying to get somewhere. But here, would be my next question as to, okay, now you have this wave of traffic coming in on the left side of your screen, and how that's going to affect. We'll see if CHP tries to wall this suspect off here to the side, but we're just going to have to wait and see.
And they really do have to be careful, because again, we don't know the details of who may be in that vehicle. There may be someone inside, which is why we haven't seen a pit maneuver just yet. Slow speeds are better for those pits, but you know, that vehicle being only possibly running on 3 good tires, if not less, that could also play into why they are not deciding to make any more aggressive moves. But as you mentioned, Gio, they are moving to close off the 405 there as vehicles have to just get out the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure wondering what is happening.
Right.
If you're from Southern California, you know this is a pursuit.
And typically these pursuits would be whizzing by you if you ever do get caught in these situations. But this one, of course, going incredibly slowly. But you saw those CHP vehicles start to shift over to the left. But there it is, the car. You very much see it wobbling right now.
Yeah, you can really see that front tire down to its rim. Take a look at that. It is hitting hard on that pavement.
Right.
You know, that driver, it is loud in that vehicle. You wonder if the other tire may look the same, if they were able to successfully spike strip both sides there.
It's hard to tell. Obviously, the indication right now, I mean, we can guarantee that it is that front left one, but that also, you pointed out, it is a convertible, looks like a Mustang, at least from our perspective. But you know, the brake lights obviously are going there. It's just that this vehicle is moving. Obviously, we're zoomed in, but you can tell it is moving very, very slowly as we now transition onto the 405.
Yeah, it looks like it's speeding up. That this driver is trying to speed up just a bit, but I'm sure that car is just not able to go any faster without having 4 good tires there. What I'm surprised is that we're not seeing any sparks at this point because it looked like a little spark there because you can see that rim is hitting the concrete, and if you're going,
especially if you try to speed up and you're establishing even more friction, that's what ends up leading to
all those
potential fire, sparks, all of that, of course. But there's only so much you can do with a vehicle that is affected to this degree.
Yeah, Gio, this is the first time we're getting a look at possibly inside that vehicle. You can make out a slight silhouette there. It's really hard to see given it's so dark in this area. But it looks like you can see at least, the driver a bit, but you can't really make out anyone else at this point.
No, and all we can tell so far about the vehicle, aside from it's a convertible, it looks like it's just simply a 2-door coupe. So there's not that much space inside one of those cars to begin with. So at most you might be able to have 1, if not 2 more people in there. But again, we don't know the exact number. We know it almost looks now as if it's slowing down even more so. But just as we zoom out here on the 405, you just notice how the response by CHP is significant. You're noticing 4 vehicles in your screen right now, but we can tell you from just the last 10-15 minutes, it is a lot more behind and a very significant response to this situation right now.
Yeah, we're talking about what, a 6 to 10 lane freeway, the 405, depending on what area you're driving down. CHP has completely shut down traffic just to keep people safe and also try to get this pursuit to come to a stop, to come to an end there. And at this point, it is just not happening. And looks like the vehicle starts to slow down a bit as we're seeing it right now. And then occasionally, again, the way I describe it is just mind-blowing that it can keep going and they will start to speed up to about 12 to 14 miles per hour. And
there's a traffic slowdown there on the 405 from what we were pointing out when the suspect made the transition from the 605 onto the 405, but you notice it there. Now backed up, and it's something that has been affecting a multitude of people now just in the last 15 to 20 minutes or so. And now you're looking back at the vehicle in pursuit right now. It's speeding up just a little bit again there. It's almost like in these short bursts it'll pick up before, and obviously it's hard to tell exactly what the driver is thinking, but given the situation and given the fact that it's just one tire at least that has been spiked, affecting the vehicle, you can only go so fast before you then start to lose even more control of the car. Yeah. Sparks start to come up from that tire, and then you're talking about a potential worse situation there if anything were to happen. But then the car starts to slow down just a little bit more as you take a look at it here, and you're caught in a cycle of what is a very slow pursuit, but one that we've noticed CHP be on top of the entire time because there's nowhere else for this person to go. That spotlight, you see it moving there just a little bit, has been on top of it the entire time. Yeah. And as we try to zoom in here to see if we can get a better look at the driver. It's hard to make out. You're seeing some sort of movement inside the vehicle, right? It looks like that driver is making some sort of movement with their hands, now speeding up to 20 miles per hour. When you have a tire on its rim, this is going to be very, very difficult for this driver
to keep that steering wheel straight. I'm surprised, again, we're not seeing any more sparks, especially because they picked up so much speed. Again, this person wanted for possible kidnapping. Now, we don't know details on the situation of that kidnapping or where it may have occurred, but we do know that this pursuit started at the 605 interchange. And take a look, Gio, this person now trying to get off
the side.
And really making a brazen maneuver there, going quickly
as we keep an eye on this, because we're losing sight underneath the overpass there. Now there's the vehicle again, and we want to bring in Patrick O'Malley, retired police sergeant. Patrick, can you hear us?
Okay, we're going to work on getting Patrick
But
here.
in the meantime, you see now, after that very quick maneuver by the suspect, all of a sudden now you're seeing CHP inch closer and closer to this vehicle.
We're going to try to get Patrick O'Malley, retired sergeant, with us one more time. Patrick, can you hear us?
Yes, Leslie, I can.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight as we continue to monitor this very slow-moving pursuit, but dangerous nonetheless. Are you hearing anything about what this suspect could have been involved in? We know possible kidnapping, but we're not getting any more details on that.
No, that's all I'm hearing also. I haven't heard if it was an armed kidnapping. I haven't heard where the kidnapping victim is. I haven't heard anything else except what you guys are currently reporting right now.
Given the situation now, obviously, Patrick, when we deal with pursuits, you're used to things flying 50 plus, 70 plus, 80 plus miles per hour, especially when it involves a freeway like we've been seeing here on the 605 and the 405. So what is typically the protocol, the sort of tactical plan when it comes to dealing a situation? Because if I was watching from home, I'd be thinking, why not try to cut off or corner a suspect that is moving so slowly? What tends to be the plan in a situation like this?
Well, the biggest thing and what it could be, based on the number of units that are behind it, and how they are treating it, is that it could be an armed kidnapping suspect. So when somebody is armed, the last thing you want them to be doing is looking back or directly in your direction. So if they were to do some type of pit maneuver, anything like that, it puts other officers in danger. So this is like a dream scenario for this type of pursuit. They have the vehicle almost completely disabled at a speed that nobody can get, injured in terms of the suspect or the victim or the officers. And then they will just get all of their resources ready, which is, it's been going on long enough where they're almost probably all there. And then they will ride this until the end, until the car is completely disabled, and handle it from there.
It's pretty incredible, though, Sergeant, when these vehicles continue to move, even though they are at slow speeds. I know you said this is really the best scenario for CHP and law enforcement, but when we see this, I mean, it just blows my mind every time we see these vehicles that they're able to continue chugging along, and these pursuit suspects just aren't going to give up despite going 5 miles per hour.
Yeah, and in on this vehicle, it's hard to say so far, but it looks like the rear wheel, at least on the driver's side, it still has air. So I think it's probably, if it's a Mustang, I can't really tell for sure. If it's a Mustang, then it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle. So, all of its horsepower and everything is still coming from the rear end. So he's just pushing it and just riding on those rims. So, until the rims disintegrate and everything falls apart, this car could just keep going at this speed for a while. And as we saw, a minute ago, he got it up to about 25 again. So, he could be just riding this out. He could be talking on the phone, calling, people, trying to get some help or whatever he needs to do. But, yeah, they got, as you saw, they had the freeway completely shut down. They'll probably shut down the other side if it comes to a halt. And then they have it in the perfect situation with nothing around it except police officers, and they'll handle it from there.
Yeah, Patrick, we can tell you from our perspective, it certainly looked like a Mustang when we zoomed in a little bit earlier. You could make out the the logo and the icon there in the center of the vehicle. But to your point there about traffic, is that we've noticed it was stretching for miles. I mean, it seems like such a simple pursuit, and in a way, as you mentioned, it is, because you have everything in such a controlled fashion. But with traffic being backed up as well, it seems like you would rather obviously be in a situation like this if you had to, versus in other examples where we've seen pursuits happen in neighborhoods where someone will just keep driving 40 miles an hour through intersections, through red lights, et cetera, and just kind of keep it going. Whereas with this one, it's kind of an open, just wide open completely, and it almost looks, they're going, in fact, they're going so slow, it almost looks like they're at a complete stop.
Yeah, this just makes all the decision making that much easier. You know, they're at this point, they're preparing for the termination of it, which could happen at any second, where in the other ones, you're making decisions, you know, based on what is the crime, is the person armed, are we going to continue this pursuit, are the officers in danger, you know, or is the citizens in danger? Where in this situation, it's just all about, they have the information in terms of the kidnapping. So they know if the person was armed, they know, you know, if the victim's in the car or if the victim's been dumped off, they have all the information. So that's what they're preparing all of their resources for. And as you can see, you know, right now, they just have the entire freeway with a wall on one side and all of their officers and then the suspects. So it's just a perfect situation, and they're just going to ride this out. They could be getting other resources depending on the crime. You know, they could be getting their SWAT teams in place and or to the scene and everything else. So it's all about safety. You know, it's all about safety for the suspect and the officers.
Yeah, it truly is. And I know we're taking a wide look now, and it's incredible to see that wall of CHP officers there on the southbound lanes as they continue to follow this vehicle. But you can see plenty of people stopping, staring on northbound lanes and wondering what is happening. So it's going to affect traffic on both sides. But it's interesting, when we zoom up into the suspect's vehicle here, you can get a better look at just how damaged those two front tires are. And it looks like both, you can see the rubber just kind of flapping there.
Almost more so now than it was before.
And you can see the silhouette of that suspect. I haven't seen what looks to be anyone else inside, but again, you can't see the back seat there. It's really hard to make out the front, but take a look. We're zooming up and you really see that rubber just flapping as those rims are really grinding that cement. And for a pursuit suspect like this, Patrick, this would be really hard to navigate this vehicle, right? I can imagine just how loud this is.
Well, yeah, and that's why he's barely moving, because you know the car is just barely being able to roll. He's down to the rims. You barely have any rubber left on him, and he's just riding out his last moments. You know, before he either has to get out and run, or he's just going to open the doors and give up. And so there's just so much room for everybody to work with. It looked like he tried to get off the freeway when he did that one maneuver, but he didn't even make it off and stayed on the slow lane. So, yeah, he's just rolling now to the final point where he'll stop, and then we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, Patrick, even to that point about a possible foot bail situation or an attempt at an escape, it seems like that is incredibly unlikely, almost impossible, given the fact of where they are right now in the middle of a freeway, and given the number of law enforcement vehicles in pursuit. In a way, it goes back to your even earlier point about how this is even made a little bit easier, because the likelihood of any attempt to jump out seems unlikely, unless I'm wrong, and please tell us.
Yeah, Gio, you're right. The problem that we have is that the ideal situation would be to shut down all the other lanes of traffic also. Because, you know, several pursuits that we've covered, you've seen where they jumped out and ran across traffic. So ideally, they would like to even slow down the other side of the freeway, the northbound side. It looks like it has been slowing down a little bit, but you have that HOV or toll lane where they're all moving pretty fast. So they have enough units, and they have a couple units over near that center island. So if something was to happen, hopefully they can catch him before he, you know, tries to jump over that, because that's the last thing they want is someone, you know, running through the other lanes of traffic.
I was going to mention that because we have seen those pursuits where the people just get out of their vehicle and, you know, they're already breaking the law now. So if they're running into the other side into oncoming traffic. They're just simply trying to get away at that point. Do you think CHP will shut down those lanes anytime soon, or they're going to just continue to monitor at this point?
Yeah, based on all the units that they have involved and that are directly behind it, and then they even have more units that are holding traffic behind, it just looks like they made the decision just to deal with this side of the freeway. And then just if something happens where he pops out, they could have a canine that's there that would help, try to go after him before he gets over to those lanes. It just depends on how it plays out. But they've had plenty of time to make all of their decisions on all the resources they need based on the crime. And it seems like the vehicle's just barely even moving now. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, you can even notice from the zoomed out point of view that we have right now, that Leslie was mentioning earlier, the rubber sort of flapping around, and it really is barely moving. I mean, you could even make the case that in some cases you could walk or run just as fast as the vehicle is going, given where it is right now. This is the perspective here from the southbound lanes to the northbound lanes, and notice that right there. This is the impact we were talking about before, because while the pursuit is incredibly slow, it is by all logistical perspectives rather simple compared to other pursuits. This is the impact there when you have people trying to get someplace and you've essentially just stonewalled them until this pursuit comes to an end, which could be in the next few minutes, could be a while longer, and it's kind of hard to tell.
Even when it comes to an end, Patrick, it takes a while for them to get people into custody and really, move this car, be able to tow it away. But I do know the goal of CHP is to just get the freeway open as quick as possible.
Yeah, this is a nightmare for CHP. The last thing CHP wants is their freeway shut down. They're good at what they do. They deal with traffic all the time. So in this situation, if there's nothing else going on, there's no shooting or nothing like that, they'll try to get this freeway cleared up as quick as possible and then get all that traffic moving. But the problem is, in this situation, if he decides to barricade himself and not come out, then they have to call SWAT teams and everything else, and this could go on until tomorrow morning.
And
everything's so unpredictable once it gets to this point. You just hope that he just steps out, gets taken into custody, they clear the freeway, and everybody can move on with their lives. But that's the unknown, and that's where in this situation, depending on the crime, and that's what we don't know. If this was an armed kidnapping, it's a very serious felony. And in that situation, and they could be calling in their SWAT teams now, and that would be what you would want in front of this, would be some type of SWAT vehicle or Bearcat vehicle. So you have, an armored vehicle where they can pull in front of this and they can stop this pursuit now, and then everybody can handle it from there. But right now, you just want to be behind it where the suspect's looking forward. All he sees is an empty freeway, and all the officers have the advantages from behind with all of their lights and the whole freeway.
Forgive me if this might seem like a silly question, but in terms of communication with the suspect, is there any attempt at that from this current perspective that we're looking at right now from CHP directly behind the suspect? Or is this something that is just a pure, we just wait until that person stops? I'm not entirely sure how it would work in this situation, but is there any attempt at trying to communicate with the suspect, or are you just waiting until it ends before even that sort of thought crosses their mind?
It depends on what type of kidnapping it is. If it's a known suspect, then they would be trying to contact him the whole time. So they would try to get the phone number from family or, any but friends or whoever knows it, and then they would be, between dispatch and the supervisors and watch commanders, they would be trying to contact him and trying to convince him to, just pull over and give up. And they would have crisis negotiators that could be involved also. So it really just depends. But sometimes, you have someone that pulls up and tries to kidnap somebody and you have no idea who they are. So this could be one of those, too, where they just have no idea who this guy is and they have no way to figure out how to contact him.
Retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley, we're going to keep you here on the line. I just want to get some of our viewers up to speed since we have hit the 8 o'clock hour here on KCAL News. If you're just joining us right now, we are currently monitoring this pursuit of a possible kidnapping suspect happening here on the 405 South, right near the 22. We know this started around 6:45, right on the 605 interchange. At some point, spike strips were deployed, and we know that the car has the front two tires definitely ran through those spike strips, but because you can see them down to the rim there, you can see a lot of the rubber from that tire just flapping around. But Gio, for the last, I mean,
half hour or so?
More than an hour, this car now has led CHP on a pursuit, and at some point going 5 miles an hour, and nothing has come to an end. This person has not decided to get out.
If that's how fast they were even going, because we've vacillated between high-end speeds and potentially 20, 25, and then very quickly coming back down to this slow crawl. But on top of all those details Leslie was just giving out, it's also turned into what you noticed there on screen was a traffic incident as well, because despite the fact that this is a very slow pursuit, something that CHP seems to be very much on top of with a light over top, you look at that right there. That is significant. Those are the southbound lanes of the 405 backed up significantly. And this was a pursuit that started on the 605, then transitioned here to the 405 in about the last 20 to 25 minutes or so. And the longer it goes, the more that's going to become an issue in terms of backing up even further and getting in people's way. So if you even had plans on jumping on there anytime soon, if you're still at home, that might be something to avoid in the very near future, because right now all of those lanes on the southbound 405 are shut off and shut down until this pursuit ends. So on top of all that, we continue to monitor the situation, and we also have retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley on the line with us to fill us in, give us some more perspective, more details on what's going on here. And Patrick, as you were mentioning before, this is really just a waiting game right now, correct? Is this just something where it could end in the next 5 minutes, maybe the next 15, or even in a possible long case scenario, could go into tomorrow morning if it turns into something with the suspect there sort of waiting it in?
Yeah, exactly. These aren't our most exciting pursuits. You know, a lot of people like the exciting ones that have lots of drama and excitement, but this one looks like this is how it's going to play out. So this is, you know, until it ends, it looks like he's going to be going 2 miles an hour, and we'll just wait and see if, you know, the CHP or the police officers that are involved or the deputy sheriffs are getting other resources into place to make a different move. But, you know, for now, they can just ride it out like this, and everybody stays safe, and it's just not as exciting as normal.
Yeah, and, you know, we know many of the times it's a sergeant making those calls. I'm sure you've called many of these pursuits in your career. But people watching this may be asking, why not a pit maneuver right now?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You know, everybody always says, well, why not just pull right in front of them? Why not block them off? A lot of police departments have policies that they can't ram a vehicle. They can use the pit maneuver, but they can't ram a vehicle. They can't get in front of a vehicle. It's basically due to the dangers that are involved. And in this situation, it seems so simple to put a car in front. But to put a car in front of this car, you have to have an officer inside of it, and then that brings them into the line of fire if this suspect was armed. So they just want to keep him facing forward. When you do a pit, all the officers that are trained in the pit maneuver, it takes 2, 3, 4 officers to do it correctly, because one hits the bumper and then they keep on going. The other officers, pull their vehicles up and conduct a felony traffic stop in whatever direction the vehicle is now facing. So in this situation, they want him facing away just in case this is an armed kidnapping suspect, and then they can make their moves from there. We'll see. I mean, I see some officers that are pulling up now. There are some different types of vehicles, so they may have something a plan in place that they try to bring this to an end a little sooner than keeping this going at 2 miles an hour. So we'll just have to see.
And one of the other things you were mentioning to us earlier, Patrick, was the fact that this allows officers a benefit of time and planning, because you're right in the sense that it's not, quote unquote, an exciting pursuit by typical standards here in Southern California. This is something that allows them to have a strong hold on the situation, because we've been able to maintain this vehicle even from SkyCal, from our chopper, incredibly easily. So I can only imagine with the number of law enforcement vehicles in pursuit, this has been a very manageable tactical situation for them.
Yeah, for sure. And you have probably numerous police departments involved also with CHP, sheriff's departments as well. So whatever resources they need, they already have in place. So you'll have officers on the other side of the freeway that are in place just in case something, ends up going on that side. You'll have officers that are already in place on the off ramps and the on ramps. We saw that you have the police helicopter up above, so you just have everything in place perfectly, and you got plenty of time to think about it and make changes, and then just let it play out from there.
Yeah, and Patrick, we know that this suspect possibly involved in a kidnapping. Now, we don't know the details of that kidnapping, where the victim is, what happened to the victim. We are waiting to hear more from CHP, but does this give you any indication that this, every suspect that leads police on a pursuit is serious, but this just seems like, police may be thinking this person is extremely dangerous, maybe armed in some sort of way. The amount of CHP officers is really making me question that.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know where this originated. I think it was Santa Fe Springs, which is LA County Sheriff's Department. And then looking at some of the vehicles, I can't tell if they're all CHP or not. So it just depends. Usually, if it's CHP wants to handle it on their own. So the other departments will back off and just provide support. So this probably is all CHP since it is on the freeway, and I do see some of the CHP vehicles. So
I'm seeing all CHP, but as you mentioned that, I do see, and I can't make out what city it may be from, but one of those vehicles said police, correct?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It stood out compared to the other ones. And right now we're maintaining an eye on the suspect's vehicle. They're getting a little dark, but otherwise you can easily point it out in the spotlight there over top as well. But to Leslie's point earlier, Patrick, it's the persistence. That's what I think is so striking to us so far, is the fact that that dichotomy of the fact that it's such a quote unquote easy pursuit to handle because the suspect is going so slow, and it makes managing it so easy, but also the question of, well, it is going so slow, so it feels like it should be over or under control right now. There's a friction there that I think is really interesting, and of course, obviously concerning, given the fact that it's still ongoing, despite a vehicle that a lot of people would consider is going incredibly, incredibly slow.
But yeah, and in normal pursuits, you know how adrenaline works, and a lot of these officers get very high on the adrenaline. They got to, refer back to their training and their experience in the termination points of pursuits. That's something that they don't have a lot of adrenaline as this pursuit goes on, so they have to stay very aware and on their toes in terms of what the next step is going to be when he does jump out or something else changes, because it's been going on at 5 miles an hour or less for so long. It does get a little bit boring until you're getting to the end. So I just the way that it's playing out though with CHP involved, CHP does not like to have things drag on. So the last thing they want is a freeway that's completely shut down like this. So it just leads me to believe that there must be some type of weapon that's involved in this, or something where they don't want to end this with a pit maneuver. So that's why they're letting this ride out how they have been doing it for so long.
Yeah, and that's, of course, as you've mentioned countless times, for the safety of the officers and the safety of maybe the other people there on the freeway on the other side. When you look at this, this vehicle looks like it's coming to a stop, but every time we think it is, the driver just keeps going, chugging along. But what would maybe be the next move once this does come to an end? Or well, I should say, if the driver stops.
Well, it's going to be the same thing they're doing now. So, especially if there's a weapon involved. If he comes to a complete stop, then it's going to be like some of the pursuits we've seen before, where they are just going to wait for him to come out. There's they have many other resources to force him out of the vehicle at that point in time. But, when it gets to that point, their hope is that he just puts his hands up, opens the door, and exits the vehicle, and he's taken into custody. An ideal thing that could happen upcoming, which we could hope for, would be that they use more spike strips and try to get all of the tires flat, so that he's just running on simply all rims. But that's just, it's hard. They could do it, but they also have all the police vehicles spread all the way across the freeway, so they'd have to get somebody, put it out there and then also get those moved so that it doesn't flatten the tires of the police vehicles.
One of the things also, Patrick, that we've been looking at earlier these last 20, 30 minutes or so is you could very easily tell. Obviously, we could tell the driver was there. We could see a person moving back and forth. But it's been very difficult to even point out or notice that potential kidnapping victim in the car as well. But it's worth repeating for people at home that the reason that this pursuit hasn't ended yet, to your point about pit maneuvers and about the tactical awareness that needs to be made in cases like this and situations like this, is that potential kidnapping victim in the vehicle is the reason why this is not done yet, because you have to manage their safety, officer safety, and everything else, going back to your earlier points about not having, even a suspect with a weapon, having that weapon pointed toward officers as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I haven't been able to make any calls or get any other information in terms of what this kidnapping was. But exactly what you said, if you can just imagine, that there's some, child or some kidnapping victim that's inside this vehicle, or say it's even inside the trunk. There's all kinds of possibilities. So, that could be the other reason why they don't want to get this vehicle spun around or get it into some type of accident or end up in some type of big shooting. So, this is like we had talked about before. This is like a dream scenario to let run out until the vehicle will no longer move or it runs out of gas, and then they will move on to their next step in terms of taking the suspect into custody.
Yeah, many times we see these vehicles continue to go. I know we've covered pursuits that will last hours, and it never matters how many tires are still functioning. The car will continue to move. But Patrick, I want to get to what kind of communication do you think CHP is able to currently have with this suspect right now? Because this is pretty, as we mentioned, slow moving and kind of a good scenario when it comes to law enforcement and allowing them to plan. Are they able to negotiate with this suspect right now? Do you think that's something that they're already doing if they're able to get a hold of them?
Yeah, that's the key. And it's entirely possible they've been talking to him this whole time, and that he's just, talking as he's driving and saying, no, he's not going to give up, and saying, whatever his next move is. Or it's possible that they have no idea who this guy is. The vehicle maybe, it might not have license plates on it for them to figure out where it's registered to and send officers there to talk to family and try to get information that way. There's just so many variables that are involved when you're trying to figure out who somebody is. Police have a lot of resources that they can use to try to figure that out. But it's just hard to say if this is some type of domestic situation, domestic kidnapping, or just some completely random kidnapping off some street corner. So it's really hard to say. But the thing is that it's almost 100% that all the officers involved and the police departments that are involved know exactly what happened in the original kidnapping, and that's how they're treating this situation, is based on those facts.
And of course, we are going to continue to keep an eye on this, as you are as well. Patrick O'Malley, retired police sergeant, giving us some time tonight. We want to pause you for a second because we want to shift the perspective a little bit here as we continue to monitor the situation, because it's turning into, or rather has turned into, a traffic nightmare as well. Yeah, many people stuck in this traffic right now, and our very own Michelle Julie is also stuck in that traffic. Michelle, can you hear me?
Hey, Leslie. Hi, Gio. When I looked up and saw what I thought were news choppers in the sky, I called, of course, the assignment desk, figuring that there must be something going on ahead of me. We had kind of traffic had ground to a halt there right at the 605 and the 405. And in fact, I was then notified about this slow pursuit happening ahead of me. So I'm, amongst hundreds of other drivers moving very, very slowly, like 2-3 miles an hour on the 405.
Michelle, where are you on the 405 right now?
So I just, within the last 60 seconds or so, I was in the fast track lane. So I was able now to divert onto the 22. So anybody's lucky enough to be in the fast track lane and able to get over, or for that matter, I guess you can, on the far right, you can get into the onto the 22. We are now free of the 405, the mess on the 405. So I just got on the 22 and it's smooth sailing. But the 405 is just red lights as far as you can see. And so I wasn't stuck in it too long, but for anybody who's right behind that pursuit, they are going to be in for a long haul tonight, it looks like.
Yeah, Michelle, we were just, as you were mentioning that, SkyCal zoomed out and showed the incredibly long line of traffic, because what started off as just some congestion on the 605 before then getting on the 405 has now turned into something that would almost look like a live shot on a major holiday, on a major commute on a Labor Day or Thanksgiving or Christmas. And in fact, it's a pursuit that's not typical, what you would typically think about here in Southern California, going 70 plus miles an hour. No, it's going at about 5, if not less than that right now. And I was pulling up the map as well while you were talking, and you were right. If you are fortunate enough to jump on the 22, you will be clear to go wherever you need to there. But otherwise, you are stuck for a significantly long amount of time there on the 405 while this is still going, and there doesn't seem to be any indication that it's ending anytime relatively soon.
Michelle, before we let you go here, were you close enough at all to see how many CHP officers were there on the ground?
No, I was too far back. But the other issue, of course, is everyone now is bailing, trying to get off the 405. So, say, Seal Beach Boulevard, all of those exits to get off the freeway and try and take surface streets are severely impacted. So not only do we have the issue on the freeway, but all those surface streets. But just to get back to that, I was so far back that I couldn't see any flashing lights. But when I looked on my map, I did see red for, a decent stretch of the freeway, but it didn't seem as bad, so I thought I'd get right past it. But then as soon as I found out that we're talking about a pursuit, the potential kidnapping suspect, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a long one.
Yeah, this is going to take a long time. And Michelle, being on the ground, you have reported on countless of pursuits. It's always just incredible to see these vehicles continue to chug along. We know this suspect has 2 front tires that are down to their rims, but not unusual, is it?
No, not at all. And I was jumping ahead to the point at which where the vehicle stops, and then the officers are trying to get, the suspect to comply. And I thought, wow, how long is that going to take, and how much further will the backup stretch, back into LA County?
Yeah, Michelle Geely, one of the lucky ones tonight, being able to jump on the 22 there before getting stuck in that 405 even further. Michelle, we thank you so much for calling us. We know you're always on top of it, and it's so good to get your perspective there, especially because you were stuck in that 405 for a little while there.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And as we bring in now retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley back as we continue to keep an eye on this pursuit. This angle, Patrick, we've been talking so far about how you can notice both of the front tires basically just riding on the rims. There was something else I wanted to ask you about earlier, because we've noticed this vehicle sort of occasionally try to pick up and ramp up its speed before it very quickly slowing back down to what we're noticing there. But look, there's the passenger right there. You see in the seat there, almost knocking. You can see a passenger. Yeah, it almost looked like they were knocking on the window, or at least maybe drawing some attention. But now you can actually make out that there is someone there.
Again, we don't know if this is for sure a kidnapping victim, but we do know this is a situation involving a kidnapping.
But ultimately, the point here and the concern, at least from our perspective, Patrick, is the fact that we've seen other pursuits where a vehicle will lose a tire, or they'll be driving on their rims but still try to go at a significantly high speed, and then that's where the friction comes in. That's where the sparks come in, and we know what happens when you have friction like that. It develops a fire, and it could turn into a potentially even more disastrous situation. So, you know, on the one end here, it at least is positive that it maintains a slow speed, because that's naturally where my mind starts going to if they even try to attempt to pick up the pace and try to take off here.
Yeah, and it is kind of odd that they're going this slow, because, you know, with the full air in both rear tires and this rear-wheel drive fast vehicle, he could be going much faster. So for whatever reason that he's going this slow, you know, we don't know. But, you know, with that, seeing that person in the passenger seat, I thought I saw someone in there before, but I wasn't sure. But that kind of explains, you know, the tactics that are being used right now, is just give the vehicle distance, let the vehicle ride out. You know, it's just so hard to tell what, you know, how they came across this kidnapping, if the victim called or pushed 911 on their cell phone, or if they tracked the cell phone, or, you know, all the different resources that are available. So
yeah, and not to cut you off here, Patrick, but I do have an answer to that question you were posing there. Our assignment just let me know that a call to 911 came in around 6:45 p.m. tonight, and it was the kidnapping victim's family that called 911, stating this emergency. We know then that this pursuit started at the I-5 Again, we don't for sure know if that is the kidnapping victim. We believe it possibly is, but how much does that then heighten a pursuit, and what moves CHP is going to make?
Well, it just explains everything that we've been discussing. You know, when you look at everything that's been going on, it was kind of easy to guess, you know, that those were the facts, but, you know, we don't want to speculate also. But you could just tell by the way the police were treating this, you know, to have a freeway completely closed down with, you know, thousands of vehicles being blocked. CHP is taking their time with this one. And based on that, which if a family called, this could be some type of domestic kidnapping. So in that situation, then they know the suspects, probably know the suspect's identity. They know his name. Obviously, now we have several cell phones that are in the car also. So, you know, there could be all kinds of communication going on. And if you bring a weapon into play also, you know, that just, it makes it that much more complex. So that's why they're just going to let this ride out. And hopefully, if they're in communication with him, they can convince him to just, you know, turn off the car and step out, and then they can resolve whatever happened from there. Because a lot of times in, you know, domestic situations, it's not actual kidnappings, but sometimes it is. You know, sometimes they went willingly, and then they wanted to change the story, and, you know, because the family didn't like the other person, however it plays out. So that's this one. It's unknown, you know, who the two people are and the exact facts, but that's why the police are treating it this way, and they're just going to let it keep riding out.
Yeah, right now that vehicle is going, you could easily argue, the slowest we've seen this entire, pardon me, this entire last hour or so since we've been keeping an eye on it here on air. You almost get a look at the license plate there as well, but, you know.
It's like one of those very distinctive license plates, you know, maybe one of those specialized ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Though I mean, ultimately, it's
hard
just
to make out.
It is hard to make out, but even more so the fact that this car is just there's nothing you can do in terms of just anything other than what we've been seeing so far this evening, and that now we've been able to make out someone in the passenger seat. You know, the driver's right there, and you're just snailing along.
It looks like that driver there is wearing either glasses or sunglasses.
Notice some sort of it looked like sunglasses, though. Again, hard to tell. From just a few minutes ago when I first noticed them as well.
It does look like sunglasses there, but you can't really make out the passenger, although we do know there's someone sitting there. This has really it does really explain what we have seen, Patrick. But when you think about what maybe this person may be going through, you know, what a scary situation. Your family called 911 on your behalf. So you just wonder just how much danger is that person in?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because if you look at this car also, I don't know, it looked maybe like a Nevada plate. So a lot of times rental cars have out-of-state plates. So, you know, did somebody pick up a rental car and then have the intentions of going to kidnap somebody?
Wow.
Those are all things that we will learn, you know, as the days roll on and the person is taken into custody. But yeah, I mean, if it's 100% legit kidnapping and the family called and, you know, the person was armed and took this person against their will, then, you know, this is a very, very serious situation. And that's why you see so many police officers behind it and why they just keep letting it roll out. Now you can see all the spectators and everybody else that wants to be a part of it as well, which brings in other variables that, you know, you got to keep everybody safe, and the last thing you want is spectators or the looky-loos that could be injured.
Well, and this is sort of the irony of a pursuit like this, as it looks like the vehicle, it looks like it's at a complete stop right now. If not the slowest moving we've ever seen it at this point.
No, you're right. No, it's at a complete stop right now,
It's a complete stop right now. So now you see officers exiting their vehicles right now and approaching the situation cautiously. It almost looks, and Leslie, please tell me if it looks like they have weapons drawn.
It does, yeah. They have weapons drawn right now. It looks like maybe they're giving out commands, and that would be the case right now, right, Patrick?
Yeah, so this is the termination point, or hopefully the final termination point, and then this is a felony traffic stop. And so this is how CHP and police officers are trained to conduct felony traffic stops, and this is where the supervisor on scene they'll have deadly force, they'll have non-lethal force, bean bags and other things like that. They probably have a canine. The police vehicle that is involved in this, I think, is a canine. So that's why he was there. And yeah, I think it is because you can see it on the side of the door. So then that's what his vehicle is. So they have the dog there also. Yeah, so they'll just have everybody set up and they'll start making their commands to exit the vehicle. And so far, it looks like the driver has his hands out of the vehicle, so hopefully this will end peacefully. Yeah,
now open that driver's side door, and it looks like they're going to attempt to get out slowly, but you wonder if that is the passenger. The passenger's opening their door, but if that is the kidnapping victim, you know, police want to make sure both get out safely and take one into custody. Take a look. You can see what we believe maybe the driver.
Yeah, who knows if there was a switch, but it looks like that is the suspect there exiting the vehicle, hands up in the air, and potentially the victim on the other side there. Looks like it's a female passenger.
Here's the thing, that suspect is really walking a lot. He's now holding that victim, embracing that victim, hugging, well, I should take that back, hugging that woman there, the passenger. We don't know yet if it is the kidnapping victim, but take a look. It looks like they're now talking.
Yeah. And he has his hands up.
The driver does
backward.
have their hands up, yeah.
She's wiping her face right now. It almost seems like the significant emotion in this situation right now as she backs away from him.
Looks like she's talking to someone on the phone as well. That may be law enforcement giving her commands on what to do.
And an end to what has been an incredibly chaotic situation so far this last hour and a half. But to Patrick's point earlier, that this seems to be the final steps as we put a bow on what's been a very chaotic, crazy situation, a slow speed pursuit now finally coming to an end here on the 405 as the suspect now seemingly stepping back, getting on the ground, and it looks like we have an end to this pursuit.
Finally able to get that suspect into handcuffs. This is the moment CHP officers have been waiting for almost 2 hours now, and you can see it looks like they're not treating her as a suspect, so I can believe that maybe that is the kidnapping victim there, and you can see she's wiping away some tears. She's speaking to that CHP officer. But wow, Gio, we don't see that often where the suspect then embraces the other person. And police, you can tell, backed off. And I'm guessing that is because, and Patrick, if you're still on the line, maybe officers were giving her commands on the phone. It looked like she was talking to someone on her phone.
Either that or
yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
It was, I mean, it played out pretty much how we had, you know, how we were saying. It looks like it was two younger people and, you know, maybe an ex-boyfriend or something like that, who showed up and then, according to the family, forced her into the vehicle to leave. So, as we were talking about communication and other things, it looks like they probably had communication with them the entire time. She was probably either talking to the police and her family, or however it played out. And, in the end, they were able to convince them just to pull over and give up, and it all ended peacefully.
And it looks like they're still communicating there with her outside of that CHP vehicle. And going back to the earlier point there, because we were filling in some details in case you're just catching the end of this pursuit, that according to our assignment desk, a 911 call came in around 6:45 this evening from the victim's family stating this emergency, this possible kidnapping, and then that evolved into a wild chase that started on the 5605 interchange, went south on the 605 before then shifting over to the 405, and at one point spike strips being deployed, and then at that point we were watching a very slow developing pursuit, a car inching forward, traffic backed up for seemingly miles, and evolving into a potentially domestic situation, into now culminating there. You see on the other freeway there, spectators lining up and taking a look at this.
Very dangerous situation there. Well, we know this is going to take a while for CHP to move all their vehicles as well as the suspect's vehicle, but you saw it there, one person taken into custody, what we believe is maybe the kidnapping victim. Taken away safely, and you can see what is left now on the 405, this long line of traffic. Hopefully CHP, their goal is always to get the freeways moving again, so they're going to try to wrap this up as quick as possible to get traffic flowing again. But that was a pretty wild pursuit ending here on the 405 South.
And we'll continue to monitor the traffic situation as it evolves through the rest of the night. This is not the last you'll hear of it. We want to thank retired Police Sergeant Patrick O'Malley for your time. Patrick, thank you so much. We appreciate the insight. We appreciate your time on this Saturday evening.
Have a good night. Thank you.